December 21st, 2025. The first real snow of the season fell thick and silent over the Adirondacks, blanketing the pines in white velvet. In a small clapboard cabin on the edge of Lake Placid, Eleanor Harper, or Ellie as everyone knew her, sat by the wide stone fireplace, watching the flames dance. She was 73, with silver hair and eyes the color of a winter sky, sharp, clear, and just a little weary. The cabin smelled of pine resin and old wool, the kind of place that remembered laughter from decades ago. Beside her lay Ragnar, her Norwegian elk hound. He was massive, silver grey, with a coat so thick you could bury your hands in it. At 12 years old, he was old for his breed, but he still moved like a shadow through the snow. People in town called him the Wolfhound, half in jest, half in awe. Ellie never corrected them. She liked the name. It suited him. She'd found him as a puppy 15 years earlier, abandoned behind the old mill after a blizzard. His mother was gone, likely frozen or taken by coyotes, and the little grey bundle had been too weak to even cry. Ellie carried him home inside her coat, fed him warm milk from a dropper, and named him after the Norse god of war. He grew into something fierce and loyal, a guardian who never left her side. That winter, the loneliness had settled deeper than usual. Ellie's husband, Jack, had died 3 years before quietly, in his sleep, the way he always wanted. They never had children. The cabin felt too big for one woman and one dog, but she couldn't bear to leave. Every room held a memory. The kitchen where Jack taught her to make venison stew, the porch where they watched the northern lights, the bedroom where they whispered dreams until dawn. Ragnar knew. Dogs always know. He would rest his heavy head on her knee whenever the silence grew too loud, his amber eyes seeming to say, "I'm still here." That morning, Ellie woke to a world transformed. Snow had fallen all night, piling against the windows like a soft white wall. The lake was frozen solid, a mirror of ice under the pale sun. She dressed in Leazan old wool coat, a scarf knitted by Jack's mother, and stepped outside. Ragnar bounded ahead, paws kicking up powder, his tail held high. They walked their familiar trail along the shore. Ellie's boots crunched softly in the snow. The cold bit her cheeks, but it felt good. It felt alive. She carried a small thermos of coffee and had a pocket full of treats for Ragnar. He trotted right beside her, his ears pricked, his nose constantly working the wind. Halfway to the old boathouse, Ragnar stopped dead. His hackles rose and a low growl rumbled in his chest. Ellie followed his gaze. There, beneath a hemlock heavy with snow, stood a young buck. Its antlers were still velvet soft, its eyes wide. The deer was thin. You could see its ribs through its coat. Hunger had driven it close to the cabin, close to humans. Ragnar tensed, every muscle coiled. "Easy, boy," Ellie whispered, her voice a soft cloud in the frigid air. The buck looked at her, looked not with fear, but with something that felt almost like a plea. Then it lowered its head and stepped forward, its hooves sinking deep into the fresh snow. Ellie reached into her pocket and pulled out a handful of oats she'd brought for the birds. She knelt down slowly, extending her palm. The deer hesitated. Ragnar quivered beside her, but stayed put, obeying her quiet command. One careful step, another. Then the buck was close enough to sniff her hand. Its warm breath clouded the air between them. It took the oats gently, its lips soft against her skin. Ellie felt tears sting her eyes. Not from sadness, but from something warmer, something older, gratitude, perhaps. A feeling that the world could still offer such quiet, simple miracles. She stayed there until the buck had finished. Then she slowly stood up. The deer lingered just a moment longer. Then it turned and melted back into the trees, leaving only a trail of hoofprints in the snow. Ragnar watched it go, then looked up at Ellie. His tail gave a single, slow wag. She smiled and brushed the snow from his muzzle. "You're a good boy," she said softly. "The best." They walked home slowly as the sun began to set, painting the snow in shades of rose and gold. Smoke was already rising from the cabin chimney. Ellie had left the fire banked. Inside, she shook off her boots, hung up her coat, and added a few logs to the glowing embers. Ragnar stretched out on the rug, his chin on his paws, watching her every move. She made a simple supper. Soup from the last of the venison Jack had shot 2 winters ago, and bread she'd baked that morning. She set a bowl of kibble down for Ragnar, but he waited until she sat down before he began to eat. Always polite, always waiting for her. After dinner, Ellie settled into Jack's old armchair by the window. Ragnar, all 90 pounds of him, climbed up beside her, resting his heavy head across her lap. She stroked his soft ears, feeling the warmth of his body against her legs. Outside, the snow kept falling soft, endless, like time itself. "You know," she said quietly to the dog, her voice barely a whisper, "I used to think losing Jack would be the end of everything. But you kept me going, day by day, step by step." Ragnar sighed, a deep, contented sound that filled the quiet room. Ellie looked out at the frozen lake, at the dark silhouettes of the pines against the darkening sky where stars were beginning to prick through. "I'm not afraid of winter anymore," she whispered. "Not with you here." The fire crackled, a comforting sound in the stillness. Ragnar's tail thumped once against the floor, and in that small cabin on the edge of the world, 2 old souls sat together, a woman and her wolfhound, watching the snow fall, sharing the quiet warmth of a love that needed no words. Winter would pass. Spring would eventually come, but for tonight, they had each other, and that was enough. Thank you for listening. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of quiet strength and companionship. November 1820. Deep in the vast, unforgiving expanse of the Pacific Ocean, the men of the whale ship Essex were on a mission. They were chasing fortune, a dream shared by so many Americans of their time. They imagined returning to their homes in Nantucket, their ship's hold overflowing with precious whale oil, a bounty that would secure their families' future adventures for years to come. On board were men like Captain George Pollard Jr., First Mate Owen Chase, and the youngest of them all, 15-year-old Thomas Nickerson. Each one was bound by this shared ambition, this promise of a better life. But one fateful day their dream was shattered, their world turned upside down. An immense sperm whale, a creature of almost mythical proportions, appeared beside their vessel. The crew had a name for it: Moab. This wasn't just a random encounter. The whale didn't just attack. It seemed to exact a kind of revenge. 3 times it rammed the Essex with bone-jarring, terrifying force. The ship's sturdy hull splintered like matchwood. The sea poured in. The Essex, their vessel of hope, was sinking. 20 men were left adrift, cast into the merciless ocean with only 3 small, fragile whaleboats and the clothes on their backs. For 7 long, agonizing months, they drifted across an endless, empty sea. The sun beat down on them, the salt stung their skin, and the horizon offered no relief. Slowly, their meager supplies dwindled. The food ran out. Then the water ran out. One by one, the crew began to succumb to the elements. Men died from starvation, from exposure, from the crushing weight of despair. Their numbers thinned, their hope faded with each setting sun. And then they faced the darkest, most unthinkable decision any of them would ever have to confront: to survive. To see another day, they would have to break the ultimate taboo. They would have to eat the bodies of their fallen crewmates. They drew lots. A man was chosen. A shot rang out across the silent water. His body was then divided and consumed. It was survival at its most raw, its most brutal, a grim necessity that threatened to strip them of their very humanity. But amidst this spiraling horror, one voice, one soul, refused to let go. It was Thomas Nickerson. The youngest on board, barely a boy. He had been raised by Quaker parents who had instilled in him a powerful belief: no matter how dark the world becomes, a person must never lose their soul. Every night, as the remaining men argued, their voices strained with hunger and fear, discussing who might be next, Thomas would quietly hold the small wooden cross his mother had given him before he sailed. His voice, though soft, cut through the tension with unwavering firmness. "If we live through this," he said, looking at the hollowed faces around him, "if we make it home, what will we tell our families? That we survived by eating our brothers? I would rather die than live with that shame." His words fell into a stunned silence. The hardened, desperate men stopped. They looked at the boy. Even Captain Pollard, who had already lost his own nephew to the sea, felt something shift deep within him. Thomas's quiet courage, his simple, profound stand for decency, served as a powerful reminder. It reminded them that they were still men, not just animals fighting for their next breath. They were sailors from Nantucket, with families, with honor, with souls. In February of 1821, after months of unimaginable suffering, a miracle. 2 of the 3 whaleboats, carrying the last of the survivors, finally reached land near Valparaiso, Chile. Of the original 20 men, only 8 remained alive. Thomas Nickerson was one of them. He never went to sea again. The ocean had taken too much. He returned to his home on Nantucket, married, raised children, and lived a quiet, unassuming life. But the story never left him. Every evening he would gather his children and tell them the tale, not of the monstrous whale that sank their ship, but of the small, resilient light of humanity that refused to be extinguished in the darkest of nights. The ocean took almost everything from us, he would say, his voice steady with the wisdom of a man who had stared into the abyss. But it couldn't take the part of us that still believes in goodness. That part is stronger than any storm. As long as you hold on to it, no darkness can ever win completely. Thomas Nickerson's name isn't famous. You won't find his story in most history books, but his legacy, his light, still burns brightly within the American spirit. His story is a powerful reminder that even in our worst moments, when all seems lost, a single act of courage, a single stand for our own humanity can be the thing that saves us all. This isn't just a tale of a shipwreck, it's the story of what makes us endure. It's about the courage to dream, the strength to sacrifice, and the quiet, unyielding resolve to remain human, no matter the cost. Thank you for listening. Please like this video and subscribe for more stories that deserve to be told.